Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the world's most entertaining Bitcoin and Liberty podcast. This is You, Me, and BTC. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have some fun. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
Timothy Baker.
And Zach Full.
Yeah, I got some just kind of fun. Zach was just mentioning a few seconds ago that the news is kind of slow, the price is kind of slow, except for today. The price is actually doing great, so we're all right with that. But in general, overall, stuff's kind of slow, and that's okay. We still got some funny, exciting, entertaining stuff to cover because that's what we do. We're here to entertain. We're not like some of the big guys that are here to freaking give you 45 headlines in 15 minutes. And we're not like some of these freaking, anyway, we just have fun. That's all I'm trying to say. So Monero, there are now somewhat officially 5 different versions of Monero. So we'll get to that and explain how that happened. Also, some really, really interesting ransomware. I thought it was a great joke. It was a bit of a troll, but also hilarious. So we'll get into all that shortly. Before I forget, I got to mention something totally random, which I meant to bring up last week, but I forgot. We had our great guest, and I didn't think to get to this. Some of you, astute viewers in particular, because the podcast listeners won't notice this, you might have noticed, if you're a viewer, that we are missing our old friend, the Silk Toad. Just like back in the days, I believe it was October of 2013. I think October of 2013 is when the Silk Road finally disintegrated. And it was last week when our Silk Toad finally disintegrated. Oh, he just fell off the wall, and I haven't put him back up yet. But it's a sad day nonetheless. A fair reminder that Ross Ulbricht is still sitting in a cage, and he shouldn't be. So I think the website is freeross.org if you want to learn more about that. Anyway, just for fun. We'll get him back one of these days. I also should turn on my screen share to show you the place to be tonight. This is you, me, and btc.com/live. Now, did my lights just turn off? I got to figure that one out. Okay, I've been messing with home automation lately, and it's a little creepy sometimes when it all does stuff by itself. Yes, this is you, me, and btc.com/live, the place to be tonight and every week. You can watch the video. You can jump in the chat box. We already got NY Cartoons, as usual, in the chat, hitting us up. What's going on? Let us know, NY Cartoons and anyone else. Let us know if you have questions or comments or anything you just want to troll in the troll box. Drop it in there, and we might mention it on the air. We also got show notes. So you can, I wrote a little more than I usually do this week. I don't know why, but you can read the show notes, click some links, and our poll. And, well, I'll ask our poll to Tim and Zach later when we get to this story, because it's going to be our second story. So we'll come back to the poll, but we would love for you to vote at btc.com/live. Also, I might as well give a shout out. Check this out, guys. This chart here, all the way in the past, well, this is a 7-day chart, but really in the past, like 24 hours, we're up from like 69 to 7,900 bucks. So we have said over the years countless things about the Bitcoin price. We've said it matters. We've said it doesn't matter. We've said that it doesn't matter if the price is low, it's still Bitcoin. And we've said that, it doesn't matter if the price is high. It's not about that. And we've said all kinds of crap. We've also said that, it sucks when the price is low, even if we like to think that Bitcoin itself is great, regardless of the price. It still sucks when the price is low, and that still hurts people and whatever. But with all of that said, one thing I can promise you is that we will celebrate with some sort of positive emotion when we see a chart like this. So there's that. We are celebrating tonight. Are you guys excited or what?
Oh, so excited, Daniel.
Yeah,
Good.
I am. I was thinking though earlier today, like we had that $1,000 green candle this morning or whatever, which you never see. And like you just said, we always talk about the price doesn't matter. Sometimes we say it does matter, but like whether it's high or low, we usually say it doesn't matter. I'm wondering, is it because people have said both things to me, both things I'm about to say. If the price is high, people are like, oh, well, you just say it doesn't matter because you're getting rich and you don't really care. And then when the price like stagnates or goes lower, dips, crashes, whatever word you want to use, oh, the price doesn't matter. People just dismiss it as, oh, well, you're just like salty and in denial. And so, of course, you say, oh, the price doesn't matter. Nah, 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 all this I don't know, which is easier to believe.
Yeah, I mean that. Like I said, we've gone both ways. It's a tough thing because it's like it matters, but it doesn't matter. It's the technology is great regardless of the price, but the price still matters. I think Tim, you're the one who said that a fair bit on some of your podcasts. That you know, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've said stuff like when when yeah, the price is low, and we like to say that it doesn't matter. But I think Tim has said that, well, it really does matter, and it is really rough when the price is low. Am I right?
I mean, I definitely don't like just kind of making a blanket statement. You do want to like act like it doesn't matter, but that's the best way probably to go through stuff. But as far as like, I mean, it does matter. It is going to change, especially public opinion, but especially even how you personally look at it. It's going to matter depending on if it's $7,000 or 19,000. It's a lot easier to talk about in public whenever it's $19,000 coming up from 5 than it is going from 19 to 7. So it
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
matters, just more so for the public image of it, and then also just morale.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, morale's a big one because it is an absolute fact that on months like the past couple, just there's less people that are getting into the space, that are building tools for the space. It's not just about morale, like how do we feel? It's about morale, like what are we doing? What are we getting done? And it's an absolute fact, as far as I'm concerned, that yeah, when the price falls, less stuff gets done. And there's still people working really hard. Lightning Network's coming out these days and all kinds of other features and tools on Bitcoin. I'm not saying nothing's happening. I'm just saying less is happening because there's just plain and simple, there's just less people in the space, excited about the space, and working on the space. So in that case, I would say that's an absolute fact. It does matter with that, at least in the present. Obviously, then you go long term, it's like, well, so what? We're going to be fine. And we say that a lot. And that's true, I think. So we got NY Cartoons asking what's causing this 24-hour jump. And I'll just turn that right back to Tim and Zach. Any ideas? I don't know. I mean, I scrolled through Twitter a bit and I saw like this gigantic trading volume over the course of an hour, some sort of record. I don't know, but I don't know what's causing that. I maybe
Yeah.
just some old big buyer. Just all right, sure, time to buy. I mean,
I
it can
think
happen, I guess.
the best theory I saw was, I mean, obviously cryptocurrencies are an unregulated market, so you have no idea who's like manipulating prices and that sort of stuff. Um, Having said that, like which makes this theory in my mind the most plausible, shorts on Bitcoin were like at an all-time high, just an unbelievable amount of shorts all over these different exchanges. They allow margin trading. And so a bunch of guys and girls, not to be sexist, just said it was just a massive short squeeze, liquidating all these short contracts. Which, I mean, I guess makes sense if you have a lot of Bitcoin to throw around and people are piling up short contracts and you want to make some money. Just say, haha, fuck you. I'm going to boost the price by $1,000 in an hour, and you all can go home and cry. So that's what I saw. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a hardcore exchange user or a hardcore finance expert. So I don't know all the technicalities about how shorts work and how margin works. What I do know is that shorting is betting that the price will go down. I do know that. And just for the sake of, well, not really clarifying what you're saying, because I don't, like I said, I'm not the expert, but just for the sake of making a guess about what that might mean, if your theory is correct, it sounds like you're saying that people, well, over time, as Bitcoin fell from like 17 down to 13, down to 9 or whatever, people are like, okay, it's going to keep falling. Let's short it, because that's what shorting is. It's betting that the price will go down. But are you saying, Zach, that just keeps building up and people keep wanting to short it and keep wanting to short it because the price keeps falling, and so they're going to keep betting that it's going to fall? And as those shorts build up, eventually something snaps and people, they push the price up, are you saying, in order to fight against the shorts? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, anyone can make like a small, medium-sized, huge margin trade, or at least offer the contract to be taken. And when enough of those pile up, yeah, like you said, the price was just sort of in a downtrend, or at least hovering in the $6,000 to $7,000 range. And now that like some of the big boys here, like funds and even a handful of whales, I guess. I mean, they've always been around, but the new big boys are like people with money, more institutional, professional investors. See all these shorts stacking up. It's tempting to just squeeze them and liquidate all of them by throwing a bunch of money around. And I mean, I'm not a finance expert either, but that's sort of the extent of my understanding. It's just a short squeeze by liquidating a bunch of the short contracts that were piling up. Pretty easy money if you know what you're doing. So yeah, that's what I think happened. I don't know. But on shorting, so a bunch of people were sharing this one screenshot. I think it was a Facebook post, not a tweet. This one girl who like was obviously new to Bitcoin and finance, I guess, in general. She posted, she was like, yeah, my friend just told me I could short Bitcoin. It's like buying Bitcoin in reverse in case you missed it on the way up. I was like, yeah, true. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's funny because one of the things that Bitcoin, at least some of the people in Bitcoin and some of the ideas that go around Bitcoiners' heads a lot, is kind of, you know, rejecting traditional finance, or rejecting all these derivatives and bad debt and all these, whatever buzzwords you want to use. My light's turned off again. I did figure out why, but I'll fix it one of these days. Yeah, so one of the Bitcoiners like to make fun of traditional investing, derivatives, all this complicated nonsense about debt and lending and margin and stuff. And that's fine. I somewhat agree with all that. Like, I don't care to get involved in all this technicalities and derivatives of derivatives of derivatives. I'm against that too in some ways. But you can't really stop it. I mean, no matter how secure and no matter how legitimate your asset is, people are just going to add a layer on top, the exchanges, and still trade it however the heck they want. I mean, you could trade freaking rotten apples on some exchange and have derivatives of rotten apples. You can't stop that. And I'm not saying I don't want to stop it. When I say I'm against it, I'm just saying I'm not involved. I think it's kind of weird and kind of dumb. I'm not going to like try to stop you. All I'm saying is, you know, it's going to happen. No matter how legitimate your asset is, there are going to be people trading derivatives of derivatives or whatever. But the bright side is we don't have to get involved in that. I can just hold Bitcoin, actual Bitcoin, just like back in the day when people might have wanted to hold actual gold, and still a lot of people today. So we can do that. We can hold actual money, and just we could care less about those random debt-based margin derivative markets. So anyway, so there's some coverage of the price, guys. Happy price up day.
But it still doesn't matter. So
still doesn't matter. Shut up, Tim. It doesn't matter. Go home. None of
No,
it
it doesn't
matters.
matter at all.
Isn't
None of
that
it.
what'd you cover? I think a week ago ish, last
Yeah.
Tuesday, you covered nihilism. How do you say it?
Nihilism.
Nihilism, which is where nothing matters, right?
Yeah, we're
Yeah, there's
price nihilists, however you
yeah,
say it.
exactly. We're I mean I'm probably more yeah, no, I'm just I'm a nihilist when it suits me. Uh yeah, no, it's just that nothing
Well,
matters
why
and
does it
nothing has
matter if
any
it
true
suits you or not?
purpose. Why does what matter?
Why does it matter if it suits you or not? I thought it didn't matter.
Because I'm selfish and I like to feel that I have some kind of a purpose, or else I'd just end it. Probably, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes our like hedonism and existential desire to gratify our needs overpowers our nihilism, and that keeps us from hanging ourselves.
Yeah.
Got
No.
it.
Yeah. I want to feel good.
All you listeners, if you're not already, make sure you keep up with Tim every Monday. He does Tim's 2 cents. Last week, like I said, he did nihilism, and just a few days ago, he did hedonism, and that's up to what, episode 7 or something. So there's several of them out there if you want to check them out every Monday on our same website, you, me, and btc.com.
If you like the sound of my voice and you want to hear it drone on for at least half hour and up to an hour and more, definitely tune in for that.
I will say this is a completely serious compliment that I grew up with Tim. I went to elementary school and high school with him until about even during the show, until about a year or two ago, I never would have expected Tim to be able to have this clear and meaningful of an hour and and a half hour, whatever it is. I never expected Tim
What
to
does
be
that
this
mean?
clear and this sensible for that long. And he does great. His audio quality is great. He has some, I'm assuming, some notes, and he goes right through his arguments and his good things and bad things about these belief systems. All I'm trying to say is I've been quite impressed by the quality of what he puts out. So,
I
and same
guess
deal with
it's
Zach.
very backhanded comment there. I mean, I'm just surprised he can even fucking talk at this
That
point.
hey, it's true. I am surprised that you can even talk at this point. So I'll be honest about that. But yeah, same thing for Zach every Tuesday. Make sure you check out the Coin Pod on our website, or just go to thecoinpod.com. So yes, we should get to the stories that we promised we would get to. So let's go ahead and do that. I will flip on my screen share again. And our first one here is going to be, like I said, about Monero. Now, there's a couple things here I want to talk about. So just to lay it out, the straight, simple news in a sentence or two, like I said, Monero, they had a planned hard fork, and then there were 4 different projects that claimed to be like Monero Classic or Monero Original or whatever else. It's just Monero Zero. They claimed to be Monero without the hard fork, kind of like Bitcoin Cash, because Bitcoin Cash made some changes, but in a lot of ways they claim to be the original because Bitcoin Core was introducing SegWit. So Bitcoin Core was becoming the new version, and Bitcoin Cash still to this day claims to be the original. Similar idea, or more similar, with Ethereum Classic, where it was a lot simpler there. They didn't change anything. They were just Ethereum Classic. And then the new version of regular Ethereum changed stuff. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So that's the simple news, is that there are now 5 different versions of Monero. The story is a few days old. I would imagine by now that some of these forks just realize, like, okay, we're not going to compete with 4 other different versions. We're just going to concede. Instead of doing Monero Original, let's just join with the Monero Classic or whatever. That would be my guess, but I haven't followed up on any of this story in the past few days, so I don't know. But before we get into that stuff, I want to talk about the premise here, because Monero had, like I said, a planned hard fork. And one of the biggest purposes for this hard fork was reducing the effectiveness of ASICs. So they were worried about ASICs just having too much power. You know, they're mining too much, way more efficiently than the rest of us, and that's not fair. So let's change a bit of the algorithm so they can't do that anymore. That alone, before we get into any of this Monero Classic nonsense, that alone is a gigantic talking point. Like, holy cow, a hard fork is a gigantic talking point. ASICs are an ASIC domination. You know, that's a big talking point. And then the idea of the centralization, like, are we really going to make these decisions about the entire network? So that's a big talking point. And I want to get into a lot of this because it's a classic debate in the Bitcoin space. With Ethereum has planned hard forks all the time, and some people are okay with that. I don't know if I am. So let's just start there, guys. What do you think about the idea of a planned hard fork? Is it scary? Is it whatever? Is it centralization? Is it unfair to the ASICs who got like cut out of the ecosystem? Any thoughts there, guys?
I mean, I can never say, or I can never really get behind an argument where it's like this isn't fair to someone. And as far as, I mean, maybe that is kind of like a dog, like exactly what I talk about. What I say is bad, but a dogmatic thing of just kind of letting people do whatever. I definitely could sympathize with somebody then being like, well, what the fuck? I built like all this shit and I put all this money into this and now I'm fucked over. But
well, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you sympathize with them? Like, it
means nothing. That's what that means. Nothing. It means that makes me feel better to say that I sympathize with them.
But you're saying like, so what? Like, I don't care what's fair. If people want a hard fork, let them hard fork.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
yeah,
like,
I guess, but like a planned hard fork. Well, like, who's planning the hard? I guess all hard forks are planned, but like, as I understand consensus mechanisms on blockchains, like a hard fork means you want to do something that a sufficiently large number of people to then create consensus don't want to do, and so you're just sort of rage quitting and taking your blockchain and going home. Except making a new blockchain, I guess. I don't know, but
yeah.
if Vitalik's splitting Ethereum and planning a hard fork, then maybe that's a problem because I mean that goes to the centralization of his whole project as the leader and him planning stuff. His community doesn't like, I guess, seemingly. I don't know.
It's worth mentioning here. I mean, we've sort of covered this a couple times over the years, and other shows have covered it, but it's worth clarifying real quick. Yeah, like you said, Zach, what a hard fork is. And it is pretty much, you know, you got it right. Like, it's just kind of take my blockchain and go do what I want with it. Yeah, that's a pretty good representation. But technically, there are two ways to fork, hard fork and a soft fork. And what it comes down to is you can either make the rules stricter or you can make the rules looser. If you make the rules stricter, that's a soft fork, because anyone in the past, anyone running an old software or whatever, they're still going to let you do everything under those stricter rules. Okay, so let's say I have my house. There's 3 rooms in my house, and I'm allowed to be anywhere in my house. That's the rule, is I'm allowed to be in any of those rooms, and that's the network rule. All right, that's fine. We'll go along like that. If I make the rules stricter and say that I have to stay in my bedroom at all times, no one else is going to care because I'm still in the house. I'm just in my bedroom, and so that's fine. That's a soft fork. When you make the rules stricter, then nobody even notices. You just start staying in your bedroom and you're fine. You're still in the house and you're still in the bedroom and you're following your rules and you're following their rules. It's a soft fork and everything's fine. But like you said, Zach, at some point or sometimes people want to just up and leave. They say, all right, I'm going out in the yard. I'm doing things my way. I'm sick of you guys. That would be a hard fork where you loosen the rules, where you say, I don't have to stay in the house anymore. I'm allowed to go outside. So screw you guys. I'm going outside.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Cash me outside. How about that? But yeah, that
second
is
time in-
a hard fork, where all of a sudden, all the people in history, all the people running old software where you're only allowed to stay in the house, and they see you outside in the yard, they're like, whoa, whoa, that is not valid. I will not accept your blocks. That is a hard fork. So anyway, so there's your clarification. And yeah, I agree, Zach. Like you said, it's just some people are just get fed up and say, I'm going to go do what I want. Cash me outside. But I still struggle, because especially having been through it with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and before that, Bitcoin Unlimited and Bitcoin XT, nobody in Bitcoin wanted a hard fork ever. I mean, obviously some people did, and they succeeded with Bitcoin Cash. But in general, the general sentiment was like, okay, hard forks are just dangerous. They're scary. If you change the rules, you don't know what could happen. And that won out. That is why we still have the original Bitcoin with a soft fork to get segregated witness. And yeah, so it's hard for me to really get behind a hard fork, a planned hard fork, because I've seen that really strong sentiment for like, hey, this is how it works, and it is working. I think we should leave it alone. We can still make changes. They just got to be more careful so that we can soft fork them in instead of hard fork them in. I would really, really, really tend to support that as opposed to a hard fork. Am I wrong? I don't know, Tim. You said let them do it. I'm fine with letting them do it, but would you actually support the hard fork?
No. Just I don't like because any of this stuff. Just because I don't understand it enough to have an opinion, I just kind of try to stay away from it because I'll just sound like an idiot.
See, I told you this is why I was surprised that Tim could talk for an hour, because he admits himself that he'll just sound like an idiot. So I'm surprised when he talks for an hour.
Plenty of people who talk for hours on end are idiots. That's pretty much the only thing that has ever let me talk for that long. Yeah,
I don't know.
Like,
even though it's hard, because even though in my years in Bitcoin, I've only seen the network reject hard forks. That's the way it's been. Like, yeah, Bitcoin Cash came along, but Bitcoin won out. So I think I can safely say that as long as I've been in Bitcoin, everyone, the majority has rejected hard forks. Despite that, I mean, I can still understand or imagine it working, it having value. If there's something that needs fixed and everyone agrees and the entire network switches, okay, yeah, technically it was a hard fork, but everyone agreed, so fine. In that sense, okay, fine, hard fork. I just have trouble thinking that would really succeed. But I suppose it does now and then. With Ethereum, it pretty much always does. And Monero, I checked the price the other day. I'll check again right now. But I don't think the price suffered too much due to this whole drama. So I am looking at a 1 month chart, and it's down a touch, but yeah, not really much. It's down from 27 millibits to 24 millibits. So yeah, the price hardly budged. And so they survived. So maybe it works. That's all I'm saying. Any other thoughts, guys?
I think, I guess I have just two opinions in general on forks. I honestly don't. So I don't think forks matter at all, really. Like, I remember before the Bitcoin Cash fork, we probably had a couple episodes about it. Like, we were all freaking out. Everyone was freaking out. We're like, what do we do? What does a fork mean? And now there's some point and click website that you can go fork Bitcoin whenever you want.
Yeah.
I think two things about forks. One, they don't matter at all. You can go fork yourself whenever you want. But also, forks can be prone to scammers, especially if your name is Roger Ver and you say my fork is the true Bitcoin or is Bitcoin or whatever and all that nonsense. If you do that, forking per se is not bad. But if you like smear it with all this advertising, branding, scammy, slimy nonsense, then you're in some deep shit. But I don't care about forks almost as little as I care about the price. Like, fork whatever you want. I logged into one of my exchanges. We're talking about the Monero forks. I logged into my exchange and I saw like all of these new coins because I had some Monero in there. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what are these coins? And
all right, so they are trading. I didn't know that any of them had succeeded enough to be trading. I should check their prices and see. I
just dumped them immediately. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I just want my Bitcoin. So
yeah, that's really interesting. I won't mess with it during the stream, but now I really want to know how much, what their prices are and how much they succeeded. Maybe they'll all survive, just like with Bitcoin. They both forks survived, and the total market cap went up because of it. So
yeah,
we'll take that free money.
Yeah.
So I'll have to check that after the show. Yeah, it's kind of like you saying it doesn't matter. It's like if it literally is just someone clicking a few buttons and saying, "I'm Bitcoin." It's like that meme with that, I think that kid from The Simpsons where he's like, "I'm helping."
Yeah.
like yeah, good job, kid.
And honestly, like everyone should fork. Like I'm not one to sort of jump on the bandwagon totally of that all altcoins are scams. I don't really buy into that mantra. But if you want to like mess around with something, why go through the trouble of building your own like entirely separate blockchain? Just like fork it and tinker around with it that way. It just seems like such a phenomenally easier way to tinker with things. And we had like Paul, what's his name?
Paul
Stortz on a while ago to talk about drive chains and side chains. And I love that episode. I want to have him on again sometime. And like, I'm more or less a fan, I guess, of that too, just as a way to make things easier to experiment with. Like, you won't get every pull request accepted into Bitcoin. So just fork it and try something new, or try a drive chain or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Fork it.
Yeah.
That's a solution to everything. Just fork it.
Yeah.
That's not a bad way to go through life, I suppose. Yeah, no, I guess I'll just pile on Zach's thing where it's like I don't care, like, if you, and I'll have to take this as part of my own, like, if something happens to Bitcoin, if something happens to any of this stuff, you are kind of like, you kind of signed on for this whenever you jumped in this in the first place, and that's why you try to make the best decision with where you put your money or where you put your time, is where your ideas or where you think things should go are either going to be respected or at least the most vocalized part of it. Because I mean, there does have to be some kind of a group preference for things. So you just try to find the one that you agree with the group preference for the most, or you just, like you said, fork it for yourself. And then you go, okay, I have whatever coin now, and so this is mine. If you want like complete and absolute control over something, that's what everybody wants. But most people aren't able to achieve that. Most people aren't able to get people behind them. And that's what makes certain people great and certain people movers and shakers in the world, because they're able to figure out the thing that lets them kind of control other people's opinions and get other people's opinions behind them. So I didn't really answer anything, but there, Zach's right. Yeah, Zach's good.
Yeah, I'm more or less on board. I mean, just whenever a fork happens, we joked, I think, a lot about this when Bitcoin Cash came out. You have to, no matter how much you don't care. Like, we joke on the show all the time. It's like, oh, I don't care, whatever. So what? I don't care what happens. Could be good, could be bad, whatever. No matter how much you don't care, you still just physically have to either, if your coin forks, you either you have to physically do something with it, even if that just means keeping it. Even if you do nothing, that's still something. So basically what I'm trying to say is, so far, my stance has been kind of in agreement with you guys. Like, who cares? The thing that I have just done with forks is nothing, or dumped them. So yeah. So all I'm trying to say is my past behavior indicates that I pretty much just don't care about forks. I'm not saying that will be the case with every fork in the future. There might be one that I really like, but so far I can more or less prove based on my past behavior that I'm just not very interested. I just don't really care about forks, kind of like Tim and Zach said. So there you go. I will, before we get into our next story, run our commercial. So that's going to be fun. We'll be back in just a few moments, guys. I will ask Tim and Zach to mute themselves so they don't talk over the commercial. And see you in a sec. Hey guys, today's show is brought to you by Chronologic.network. Chronologic is an Ethereum-based project that aims to solve time-related problems on the blockchain. Through Chronologic's 3 core products, the Ethereum alarm clock, debt smart contracts, and the day token minting mechanism, they solve the problems of payment scheduling, crypto loan time constraints, and unstable token launches. Find out more at chronologic.network.
Now we can't hear you. Can't hear you. I can hear Tim chewing. No, I seriously can't hear you now.
Best show ever.
Well, I'll just keep talking. Let's go back to forks. I think, well, let me find out the names of these forks, because when I was pulling up my exchange account list, I need Google to help me for a minute. List of Monero forks. Oh, and there were like some airdrop. I honestly don't know the difference between airdrops and forks. I don't know.
You got me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Can you tell us the difference? Because I thought some of these Monero things were airdrops. What's the difference between an airdrop and a fork?
All right. So with a fork, it's a code change. It's like the same network with the same. It's just a little code change where the networks aren't really compatible anymore, but anything from the past will show up on the new network. And with an airdrop, it's a much bigger change. You could change anything you want. You could even like say PayPal could just like airdrop dollars onto Bitcoin addresses, right? So they could say like, oh, if you log into PayPal and verify your address, we'll give you $100 for every Bitcoin on that address. And you would still get to keep the Bitcoin, but you would also get the $100. So that's what I'm saying is it's just a much bigger change where they just happen to use the same addresses and they airdrop, however many Monero classics on the same addresses, but with your network changes. Whereas a hard fork is a simpler change where it's pretty much the same network with the same coins just split. My dad would get on me for that explanation because he's an engineer and he wants to ask a million questions about like, well, what kind of difference would this mean? Like, would it be a network change, a code change? He would get on me for oversimplifying that in a way that technically probably isn't correct. But all I'm trying to do is just convey the general meaning. So that's what I had a programming professor once who said that, it was my first year, my first ever programming class. And he said that basically everything I tell you this year is going to be a lie. And, it's actually, it makes sense. It's true. Like when you're starting out with newbies, my lights kicked off again. Really got to fix that. When you're working with newbies, in a lot of ways, you really do just lie to them to help them understand. And then over time, they learn, oh, that's actually how it works. But you were just making it simpler for me in the beginning. So anyway, that was my super simple explanation of the difference.
Thank you.
No, that makes sense. I appreciate it.
So Yeah, and the reason it's called an airdrop is because it's basically a whole new coin that you're dropping onto the same addresses from the old network. That's why it's called an airdrop. It has nothing to do with the code changes or forks. It's a whole new coin that you just happen to be distributing to the same addresses. Okay. Yeah, like I guess we got this next story, which is just funny, just fun. I'll kick on my screen share again here. What do you guys know about ransomware? Let's start before we get into too much. Let's just get a quick description of ransomware from one of you two. Take it away.
They jack on your computer and sorry, Zach. I'm ransoming this. All right, Zach, I'll let you talk if you give me $5,000.
There we
ransomware
go.
This podcast.
Tim would make a great professor, teaching people by example.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I was on one of my old HP computers back in like freshman year of high school, I guess. I was a victim of ransomware. It was like a really simplistic, not very sophisticated type of ransomware. So ransomware is essentially just like a virus you get on your computer through various means that blocks access to your system until you pay a certain amount of money. And I had never encountered ransomware before. I was freaking out. I was like, what the hell is going on? I was like, do I actually have to pay these people money to get my computer back? And then one of my friends was just like, no, just when you reboot your system, when you open it, just like reset it to a previous time before the ransomware was installed, and it erased it, and we were good to go. But yeah, that's ransomware, and that was my foray into being a victim.
Yeah, so that's the idea, is you pay money to get your files back from the virus. That's that simple. And they're holding your files for ransom. That's why it's called ransomware. But this was fun. So PUBG, it stands for PlayerUnknown's Battleground, which I've never played before. I don't know much about it. I think it's a shooter. Doesn't really matter. The point is, well, first of all, the reason most of the time ransomware is handled with Bitcoin. That's why we've talked about it several times in the past. Most of the time, because it's somewhat anonymous, they expect you to pay, and because it works on the internet, they expect you to pay with Bitcoin to get your files back. In this case, with this brand new ransomware, they expect you to play this game for, they say, an hour. I heard somewhere that it's actually a few minutes will unlock your files. But anyway, I just thought it was hilarious. I'll read a little bit here. In what could only be a joke, a new ransomware has been discovered called PUBG ransomware that will decrypt your files if you play the game called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Discovered by Malware Hunter team, when the PUBG ransomware is launched, it will encrypt a user's files, and folders on the user's desktop and append the .pubg extension to them. When it has finished encrypting the files, it will display a screen giving you two methods that you can use to decrypt them. The ransom screen states, your files, images, musics, documents are encrypted. Your files is encrypted by PUBG ransomware. But don't worry, it's not hard to unlock it. I don't want your money. Just play PUBG 1 hour or restore. I don't know. It says or restore and then some complicated key. Apparently, you can just enter that key and it will automatically unlock without actually playing. So anyway, that's that. I want to know.
That's not. I mean, well, okay, so maybe this is a bit stupid, but I don't know if that's ransomware. Like, otherwise, what are YouTube advertisements other than ransomware that says we don't want to steal your computer? We just want you to watch this video for 30 seconds, and then
that's good.
And then you can have your streaming content back.
That's good.
Well, is that a internet video ransomware?
That is a good observation. I've mentioned several times on the show Sovereign Tech, another podcast I listen to, done by Brian Sovereign. he would love that comment because he absolutely hates ads. He absolutely hates. Oh well, he hates targeted ads because he hates data collection and privacy issues, stuff like that. He does ads, but they're not targeted because they're just ads in the middle of his podcast. But yeah, anyway, that's a really good thing to point out. Like, that's the way a whole bunch of the internet works. Is, hey, give me your attention for a while, then I'll give you what you want, and that's ransomware. I like it. Let's how can we coin this? Like, let's just start using that for all advertisement. Like, just call it ransom. So if I'm scrolling through even my own website, yes, I have a lot of ads on my website. So when I'm scrolling through it, what should I say? Like, oh, there's another ransom banner. Like, well, like how do I phrase this in a way that sounds good and is hilarious? Anyway, we'll think of it. Let us know if you have a good idea.
But I guess, well, we were going back to defining ransomware. I guess we should add to the definition, ransomware, like, is a specific type. It limits your ability to access, like, your machine or some sort of content, and requires you to, or it'll release you back to whatever you were doing before when you transfer some sort of monetary payment, like your attention, your eyeballs, your mental bandwidth, which is like what this guy wants and what YouTube wants and what we want on UMBTC.com. I don't think that qualifies as ransomware. It's just, I mean, he's taking like a pretty avant-garde approach to like freezing your machine until you play as a video game, or you don't even have to, I guess. But
right.
I guess ransomware strictly means pay us money. Otherwise, ads are ransomware too. So
right. The other thing that's slightly different here, presumably, is that when you see an advertisement, that's the company that is being advertised is the company that is paying, presumably, most of the time. So if you see like a Ford commercial, Ford's paying for it. In this case, presumably, we don't quite know this for sure, but presumably it's just some random dude that loves playing PUBG. So it's like, if I drove a Ford, I hope I never have to in my life. But if I did, it would be like me running around my neighborhood being like, oh, drive a Ford. And a lot of people do actually do that. Pretty obnoxious. But yeah, that's the other difference, though, minor difference, but something to note, is that presumably it's not the creators of the game trying to make money off of the game. Presumably it's just someone that really loves the game trying to, almost pretty much jokingly, trying to make other people get involved in the game. So I don't know what that means in terms of the definition of ransomware, but it's just another fact to consider.
I mean, whenever you sent the article this past week, I did read it, and I don't think there haven't been any cases of it yet. I don't think, like, it was right.
Yeah,
I don't think,
you mean cases of some sort of video game ransomware?
No, of anybody like actually getting this on their computer. It was like put up as a joke.
Maybe, possibly. I don't know. They said it was discovered by Malware Hunter team. And I don't know what that even means. Like, discovered where? Discovered how?
What? No.
Apparently, there's a little bit more in this article from bleepingcomputer.com about how it monitors the process running TSL game. And it says you have to run it for an hour, but actually you only have to run it for 3 seconds. Yeah, I don't know. This is not the first time a joke ransomware has been created that requires you to play a game before files will be, they say, encrypted. I think they mean decrypted. In 2017, Malware Hunter team also found Ransomware, which required you to play the TH12 game and score 0.2 billion points to recover your files. So, yeah, maybe you're right, Tim. Maybe they're essentially maybe Malware Hunter team just created it and made a blog post just for fun. And maybe it is an actual thing that people could install, but not really maliciously. Possible, yeah. But anyway, that's
just takeaway from this is infect your office computers at your
Yeah.
workplace, so then you guys just have to play PUBG, I guess.
Yeah, that was one. Yeah, I saw that comment in one of the articles. Like,
No,
well, at least
I
you'll have an
didn't steal
excuse to play a game if you
that.
get if.
It was completely original.
But it's true. You know, you could do that. Maybe I will tomorrow. I'll see what I can do. So, hey, we are coming up on an hour here, and you know what that means. It's time for Advice of the Week, the part of the show where Dan, Tim, and Zach come out and share Advice of the Week. We got to get some better theme music for that. Maybe one of these days. Yeah, any advice, guys? This is where, if anyone happens to be a brand new listener, I don't know how you could be, because I don't know anyone on the planet that hasn't been listening to every episode of the show. But if you are that one person that could be a new listener,
Feel
this
bad
is the
about
part
yourself.
of the show where we basically just talk about anything, any kind of advice or proverb or takeaway or thought or comment. It could be about the stuff we talked about, or it could be about anything else. So our stories were Monero and Forks and PUBG ransomware. Anything
I think all of you should wake up and realize how much ransomware you encounter in your daily life.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And protect yourself.
I like that. I use hey, I just dropped something, whatever. Full disclosure, I use ad block on my own website, so
Yeah, no, the dealer never uses. That's the one thing that is true, especially with ads and stuff like that. Or Zuckerberg, I'm sure he doesn't actually use all this shit.
That's
And
another
he's
thing
selling everything.
Brian Sovereign always like harps on like Jeff Bezos, because he doesn't let his kid, or I don't remember exactly which tech giants and which technology they were talking about, but something like Jeff Bezos doesn't let his kid use an iPad or whatever. It's like, well, he's going to sell iPads and Amazon Kindles all day long, but he will not let his kid use that kind of stuff because he knows how dangerous it can be. So anyway, that's the idea. The dealer never uses. Good point.
And then the advice that goes along with that is, it's very specific advice. If you are a crack dealer, do not start using your product. Or if you run Amazon, do not start using your. No. I guess about like, yeah, with we're talking about Forks, we're talking about the price, we're talking about all this stuff. I guess the best advice for that, the best advice for anything would be to, I keep going back to it, but be more conscious in your life, be more conscious in your, like, in the decisions you're making. We talked last week with what was his name? I almost said the Australian trader guy. What was his?
Oh, Trader Cobb. Yeah, Craig.
Trader Cobb. Yeah. I kept wanting to say hog, but I know that's just a kid trying to take everybody's guns. Don't be making these decisions. Don't get your opinion on whether something's good or bad, like I do from Twitter. Actually probably put some more effort into it, but I don't have to do that. You do. But if you are going to complain about it after, and again, I'm going to do that regardless, but it's best to know what's going on and to do your best to at least to be as informed as you can be whenever, about anything, about Forks, about just life in general, I guess. But just don't, like, learn as much as you can, so then you don't have to have things kind of come out of nowhere and just be like, wait, what happened? What, why is this? What's going on? Everything with people freaking out about Facebook in the past couple weeks, like, you didn't know they were doing this. You didn't
that's the same thing. Before I forget real quick, same idea there, because Zuckerberg like puts tape over his webcam. Like, well, the dealer never uses. Like he hijacks everyone's privacy, but he will not let people hijack his. And same thing. I didn't watch the hearings that he just did this week in front of Congress, but I did watch one little snippet where one of the senators or whoever was like, would you mind telling us what hotel you stayed at last night? And he was like, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. And he's like, well, yeah, see, that's what this is about.
I hated that hearing though. Like, it's one thing for us to ask that for Zuckerberg, but like all those senators there, just like with the even, but throughout their whole careers too, voted for just continually growing NSA surveillance on all of us. And then they sit up there and ask Zuckerberg, why are you spying on everyone and holding all their information when they did the same thing, just like exponentially worse? I'm like,
yeah. I'm sure they've like Facebook has been the greatest thing ever for them. It's not like they did it separately too. They did it partly with Facebook, and partly it is people just like posting up where they are, or like actively people telling people where they are. But also it is like Facebook. I'm sure there's plenty more things we don't know about how they've built in easy ways for especially the government, but anybody with any ability to hack into something to come in and look at your look at things you have privacy just for friends, things you don't necessarily like, just your location of your device, all this different shit. So it's like, yeah, why did you do? Well, sir, I thought you liked it last week until this came up and you had to make this point. But it's also just like a lot of those people in that room talking to them are too old at this point to really understand exactly what's going on anyway.
Hey, that reminds me of the perfect piece of advice that I have been meaning to mention to anyone listening. So, well, anything, Tim, I cut you off at some point. Do you have anything to add before I get to my final advice?
No.
All right. So this is a perfect time to bring it up. Speaking of Facebook and Google, I've been slowly over several months, inspired somewhat by Brian Sovereign, inspired somewhat by all this Facebook crap that's been going down, inspired by other Google issues that we've seen in the past. We've done episodes, I think, way back around episode 100, maybe 101, because I remember them congratulating us on 100 episodes. But we've done stuff about Google cutting off antiwar.com, all kinds of stuff. At my day job, we've had issues with Google going out and causing problems. Anyway, so for months, anyone in Liberty knows that privacy is fairly important. Oh, geez, we've said this literally probably hundreds of times on this show, so I won't get into it much, but our stance is generally like, we don't want to be paranoid, but if it's easy to be private, go for it. I won't explain more because we've said it 100 times. So that said, so over the past several months, maybe a couple of years, I've just been slowly trying to wean myself off of Google, Facebook, stuff like that. I hardly ever use Facebook anymore. I still technically have my account, but I don't have the app on my phone. I never check it on my desktop, maybe like once a month. If there's someone in particular that I think I need to, that I thought messaged me and I need to check or whatever. So I hardly ever use Facebook. Eventually, I'd like to delete my account. Maybe we'll get there. But yeah, I've also been weaning myself off of Google. So my advice, super simple today, is an app called Antenna Pod. Is that exactly what it's called? I think that's what it's called, Antenna Pod. I don't know why I'm worried I got the name wrong. Yeah, all right, Antenna Pod. It is a podcatcher. So hopefully all you listening probably enjoy podcasts. So hopefully this is an extremely helpful little trick for you. So I had been using ahead of this, and until about a week ago, I had been using Google Play Music and their podcast feature. And that it worked. I mean, I could subscribe to podcasts and I could keep all my music on there and stuff. Like, it's a decent product, but just for the sake of weaning myself off of Google, I figured I'd look for something else to listen to podcasts. And AntennaPod was an incredible solution because as I was scrolling through the list on the Play Store, I was like, well, how do I know which ones are any good? And as soon as I saw ad-free and open source, I was hooked. I was like, okay. So there was 3 or 4 that people said were their favorite podcatchers for Android. And I'm like, how do I decide which one's actually good for me? but the top 3 had ads and were not open source, but number 4 was open source and did not have ads. I was hooked. Like, that was it. I'm like, okay, that's the one. I'm going to try it and hope for the best. And it is incredible. There are so many features. You can adjust the playback speed, like all this stuff you would never even think of. Like, oh, when you connect to Bluetooth, it starts playing if you want it to. That's a setting. When you disconnect from Bluetooth, it could stop playing. When you plug in your headphones, it could start playing. It could say if there's 30 seconds left, just consider that episode listened to. Or you could adjust that and say if there's 45 seconds left, consider that episode listened to. And then, you can go into your streams and say like, oh, if an episode has the word, like maybe, actually in my case, it's Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's podcast, he also has like a sub podcast called JRE MMA something. And you can say if it contains those words, just mark it as listened to, because I don't want to listen to those. I want to listen to the normal Joe Rogan podcast. Anyway, we're over an hour here. I could go on and on and on. I'm droning right now. The point is, check out AntennaPod. I was blown away by how featureful it was. And I have seen a few bugs. There were a few times I hit play and it didn't play and I had to restart the app. It's not perfect, but the fact that it's ad-free and open source just blew me away. And so powerful, so many settings. So check it out, AntennaPod. Get off of Google. And then one more quick piece of advice, guys. If you have any other ideas, because we're on Google right now. We're on a Google Hangout. I am always looking for ideas to get less Google in my life. And I know like people, Steam, is somewhat, has an alternative for YouTube. And Library has an alternative for YouTube, which I've been meaning to look into. So if you guys have any ideas, whether it's for YouTube alternatives or anything else, any other good ways to get off of Google, to get off of Facebook or whatever, drop me a comment, drop me a message, tweet me at you, me, and BTC, email Daniel at you, me, and BTC.com. Whatever it takes, leave a comment on the website. I would love to know what ideas you have to just get off of Google. I've just been slowly trying to, like I said, I want it to be easy. I don't want to be paranoid, but if there's anything easy that's just as powerful, I'm in. So, okay. That was like a 6 or 7 minute rant from me, so I'm calling it. One of you two, close the show for us. We're getting out of here.
All right. Go fork yourself if you don't like what's happening, and you're always a victim of ransomware. So just know that nothing matters. So you might as well be a nihilist, looping all the way back to the beginning. Nihilism or ransomware is the reason for nihilism. So
perfect. All right. We'll see you next week, guys. In the meantime, you, me, and BTC.com. Peace out.
Peace out. Bye.